Islam, Islam, Islam. Welcome to the Moorish Sense Channel. I'm your host, Brother Brendan Jordan Hill, Sheikh of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 13, located here in Baltimore, Maryland, at 1055 North Milton Avenue. This is a special segment of the Moorish Sense Channel coming to you live. It's about 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Baltimore, Maryland. The day is January the 8th, 2024, and this segment is going to be specifically geared and directed to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the significance January 8th has, or is for Moorish Americans, the significance of January the 8th to Moorish Americans. So with that being said, as I often do, alongside my co-host, Sheikh Melvin Valans Bey, I'm going to open this segment up with the Moorish American prayer. Islam. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Praise Allah, brothers and sisters. Praise Allah. If you're tuning in to this recording, I want to first rise and give praises to Allah. I want to give honors to his holy and divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who was born in the state of North Carolina, January 8th, 1886. I want to also give honors to the prophet's forerunner, brother Marcus Mosiah Aurelius Garvey, who was born in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica. I also want to give honors to all past and present leaders of the Moorish Science Temple of America, those that we know, those that we don't know, and those who have kept the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and those leaders in this present day and time who are keeping the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America open across all administrations. I want to give honors to my leader. I want to give honors to my teachers and my seniors, those who have transitioned out of the physical form. I want to give a few honors to Grand Sheik R. Thornhill, may Allah be pleased. Grand Sheik is Y. Greenhill, may Allah be pleased. And today is her Earth Day as well. I also want to give honors to our past chairman, Grand Sheik Conrad Johnson Hill, and may Allah be pleased with him as well. I want to also give honors to our current administration, our Supreme Grand Sheik and Supreme Grand Sheik is C. Pray the Ill and B. Pray the Ill. And I also want to give honors to our National Grand Sheik is T. Jones Bay. I want to give honors to our national officials. And I also want to give honors to all the officials at 1055 North Milton Avenue, as well as the officials over at Temple number 13-2 under the leadership of Grand Sheik E. Thompson Bay. I want to give honors to all of those who are tuning in today, both Moorish Americans and those across the globe, those who are here in the United States, also known as part and portion of North America, as well as those who may be tuning in. If this is your first time tuning into the Moorish Sense Channel, welcome. This channel is dedicated to just giving people an introductory understanding of the Moorish Science Temple of America, our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and ultimately different questions and topics that come along our feed, and also through just general conversation with our brothers and sisters along the hedges and highways. But nevertheless, today is a great day. It's a day of celebration for many Moorish Americans across the United States, across North America, and even those who are abroad. Excuse me, I have a little cough this morning. And today's lesson, or today's segment is going to be geared towards the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And many people may look and say, well, you all may talk in great significance about the Prophet. When I say the Prophet, I'm talking about the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, who is right here, to my left, to your right. This is double mirror. It's a different effect. But today, I just want to share with the public some of the teachings of the prophet, the significance of the prophet, the condition that our people, and when I say our people, I'm talking about those who to this day identify or have been identified as Negroes, Black people, colored folks, African Americans, Ethiopians. And now, not a disrespect or a slight to anyone, but now many of our people identify themselves as FBAs. And ultimately, when I hear that, and again, this isn't a slight or a diss. What I'm hearing is I don't know who I am. And every so often, my identity, or not even just my identity, but my makeup of who I am and what I identify as, it changes. It changes as the seasons change periodically on this earth line. But I don't want to get too deep and too philosophical into that. I would rather focus this early morning, on Prophet Noble Dryly, and I'm going to just do a little bit of reading, but also I'm going to do a little bit of expounding. And again, the explanations or the expounding or the explanations and the expounding that I give is not the end all be all. I know there are many other different segments and different platforms and different channels here on YouTube, and you're going to find other individuals who are teachers, members, and future and present leaders in the Moorish movement or in the Moorish paradigm, also known as the Moorish Science Temple of America. So, to those who are putting out what they have to put out under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, I give honors to you. I give honors to you for doing the best you can do, as well as I'm doing the best that I can do with what I have on hand. So here we go. So first and foremost, I want to open this up with the image of the prophet. And then I'm going to show you a little bit or give you a little bit of background information on Prophet Noble Dry Ali. This is the image of Prophet Noble Dry Ali. Prophet Noble Dry Ali, again, was born in the state of North Carolina, January 8th, 1886. Now, what is the importance or the significance of 1886? What is the importance or significance of North Carolina? Well, the significance and the importance is this. When you look at 1886 in this country, our people, again, those who are identified as Negroes, Blacks, Colors, and Ethiopians, are coming out of different sorts of turmoil, and they're coming into a different era of time. The turmoil that I speak of, and we can rewind about 25 years before 1886. You have the Civil War, and the Civil War ultimately it disrupted the commerce and disrupted the institution of slavery, which was profitable at that time for individuals who were slaveholders. And when I say slaveholders, I'm not just talking about those individuals who identify or those individuals who derive from the continent of Europe, because let the truth be told, you had many Asiatics, and when I say Asiatics, I'm talking specifically about those who identified as Black, etc., as slaveholders as well. So slavery was a marketable, a profitable, and a lucrative business. And as a result of that, when you had individuals who were coming out of this ordeal or this advent of slavery, our people were put into a crux, so to speak, called emancipation. Excuse me, not emancipation, Reconstruction. My apologies. And in Reconstruction, you get the reconstructing of the United States government. You get the reconstructing of the ultimate identity and the ultimate purpose of the so-called Negro. And I use so-called there because this is, at that point in time, keeping up with historical reference points, this is what our foremothers and forefathers were erroneously called. They were erroneously identified as Negroes, as Blacks, as colors, etc. And though you had many different institutions, though you had I guess you had the up from slavery movement, you also had individuals emerging from universities and colleges that were founded by Europeans with under the auspices of teaching and propagating Christianity, not saying or speaking anything radical about Christianity, but many of our here in America, United States of America, many of our so-called HBCUs, etc., they were originally seminary schools. They were originally schools that taught our people or conditioned our people or trained our people mentally to continue to propagate some of the things that have been proven during the advent of slavery and even during the time period of Reconstruction as being a detriment to us. Now, why were these things a detriment? They were a detriment because though you may have had some sort of religious fervor, and though you may have had some sort of, or you were able to, I guess, proverbially pull yourself out of your bootstraps and make something of yourself during this time period. And we're talking about between 1865 to let's say 1885 or 1886, right? You are still finding yourself being relegated to second class citizenship. You're still finding yourself being relegated to inferior labels that at one point in time, during the time of slavery, made you subhuman or made you less than human. And though there were individuals who had prominent positions in political office throughout the United States that looked like myself and the prophet here, many of those individuals, they found themselves in upheavals, and they also found themselves not being able to do the work for the people. And then some people, unfortunately, were being used as tools to actually do the bidding of those who had benefited from all, the egregious activities that had taken place as a result of the institution of slavery. So here in January 8th, 1886, you have the birth of Prophet Noble Drew, and it's reported that in this land there was a seismic earthquake during that time. Again, it was reported, but there were also many different signs. Now, again, during the time of the advent of slavery, you did have individuals who did forewarn, or those individuals who were seers, or those individuals who made supplications to the great God, and I personally say Allah, that Allah would send us a prophet to bring us back not only into uh, the mindset or the consciousness of who we, or the conscientiousness of who we truly are, but put us back within the folds of humanity and society. Because you have to remember, humanity at that point in time, the humanity within my ancestors, and those who may be tuning in, it was taken away from us. It was stripped from us. And I'm going to give you some examples of how it was stripped. Because again, my name is Brendan Joyner Ill. That's my name. That's my legal name. I didn't do anything to grift, to shift, or even to pay to have this name. This is a name uh, that was given to me, Brendan Joyner, and then later on in life, Ill, which was handed down to us by Prophet Noble Drew. I never did anything to do any harm to actually get that name. All right. So getting back to this aspect of humanity, because I don't want to get off of that point, let's look and see just some examples of how humanity was stripped. Now, I'm going to go through and teach, or just show, not necessarily teach, but demonstrate some examples as to how humanity was stripped from our foreparents. And I learned this by my teachers. Specifically, Sheikh Clarence Prather, he tells us to demonstrate in real time based on signs, symbols, and examples, giving the public an example, giving you visual representations, giving you audio representations, giving you representations where you can go back in the mind and trace yourself back in the mind to see exactly what was happening during that time. All right. So one thing that I want to show everyone, I want to show you all the great sale of slaves. And one thing I want to make clear, or I hope to make clear, I pray to make clear, be it the will of Allah, is that when you look at this advertisement, and in this point in time, this was an advertisement known as the Great Sale of Slaves, and I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit. So when you look at the Great Sale of Slaves, and there are two advertisements I'm going to show you, just so we're all on the same page. It says, now, mind you, the Prophet Noble Drew was born January the 8th, 1886. And how befitting is this, that this is before the Civil War. So now you're seeing the cause and effect. You're seeing the duality. You're seeing the old era time, and you're also seeing the new era time. And what it says right here, it says great sale of slaves. It doesn't say humans. It doesn't say men. It doesn't say women. It doesn't say children, but it says slaves. And slaves, as likewise, is synonymous with black. Don't believe me? Look it up. Slave is also, or at that time, was synonymous with the word Negro, as well as the word colored to a degree in places like Virginia. But this is what it says. And I'm going to zoom in. So here we go, brothers and sisters. It says, there will be offered for sale at public auction at the slave market, Cheapside, Lexington, all the slaves of John Carter, Esquire, of Lewis County, Kentucky, on account of his removal to Indiana, a free state. So at that point in time, before the Civil War, you had what they called free slave states, and you had what was called slave states. And this created a great upheaval between slaveholding states and the states that were not slaveholding states. And if you were a slaveholder, in most instances, if you moved to a free state, you had to relinquish that which was known as chattel or that which was known as property, or those individuals were known as slaves. It says the slaves listed below all raised on the Carter Plantation at Quick's Run, Lewis County, Kentucky. And if you know anything about Kentucky historically, Kentucky at one point in time, because Kentucky to this day is a commonwealth, at one point in time it was part of Virginia. Virginia was a huge landmass at one point in time here in North America, here in the United States of America. And as a result of that, once they divided Virginia into West Virginia, Kentucky, and West Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia, then you started seeing the dividing or the change, the great change that was coming on board. But here it is. Now, think about this and think about the words. Look up the words. Examine and study the words. And we're not getting off of the tangent. We're not getting off on the point of the prophet, right? But I'm just making it clear, or I'm praying out loud that I make it clear to those who may view this video as to why a prophet had to come to a people here in America, not just because of the issue of slavery, but we're going to get into some other issues as well. It says $3, $3. So those are males aged from 20 to 26, strong and able-bodied. One wench named Sally, aged 42. She's an excellent cook. One wench named Lizzie, age 23, with a 6-month-old picnic. And a picnic or pickaninny is what the derogatory term, another term that was used to describe our children, which is very derogatory. $1. Now, mind you, this is a senior. This is an elder man. $1, age 52, good kennel man. And then $17, age from 12 to 20, excellent. It says, term, strictly cash at sale. As owner must realize cash owning to his removal to West. Offers for the entire lot will be entertained previous to sale by addressing the undersigned John Carter, Esquire, P.O. Clarksburg, Lewis County, Kentucky. Now, the condition that many of our people find themselves in today still resonates based off of what we just read. And the reason being is because when you study or investigate or examine those terms, again, those terms, those labels, those names that delude to slavery, whether it be buck, whether it be wench, whether it be pickney, as our brothers and sisters say in the Caribbean and here in America, they used to use the term pickaninny, whether it be whatever the term may be, Negro, black, colored, etc. That those terms carry a specific vibration, which is a low vibratory frequency, and also they change or alter the mind of an individual. So this isn't just one generation that we're talking about that went through these conditions. Now, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali comes on the scene, and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he begins, to teach his people. He begins to teach his people at the age of 27. He begins to formulate the idea. He begins to formulate the thought. He begins to manifest. We hear often my brothers and sisters talking about the law of manifestation. Well, the prophet, one who they try to omit and remove from history here in America, being one of the first, if not the first, and I'm saying the first, and I'm saying this on record, the first to bring the Islamic creed to those who were sick at heart, those who identified as Negroes, blacks, and colors. The prophet was the first, coming in the same language as his brothers and sisters, coming from the same walks of life as his brothers and sisters. And he didn't come on his own accord, but he was sent by Allah. And if you ever study the words prophet, word for prophet in the Arabic language is Rasul. The word for prophet in the Hebrew language is Nabi. And when you look at it, ultimately, a prophet is one who bubbles forth as a fountain. So the prophet is coming, he's bubbling forth as a fountain, so to speak. There is a bubbling forth of this, of what we call water. The prophet teaches us to keep our hearts and minds pure with love and our bodies clean with water. Water is synonymous with truth. So the prophet comes to bring us not a new truth, not a different truth, but he's coming to bring us the truth that was what? That was lost because our identities were stripped from us, our religion was stripped from us, our names were stripped from us, all facets of living in life were stripped from us. And I have to say this point right here. When the prophet came on the scene, the prophet never intended us to go back to or even think about inhabiting the continent of Africa. The prophet teaches us that, and no disrespect to my brothers and sisters, but the Moorish Science Temple of America is not a back to Africa movement. The prophet lets us know that we're already here in our homeland. But more importantly, if we're going to go back to Africa, we have to go back to Africa in the mind. And when we say Africa, we're talking about a Mexian or a Mexim, which is the original name of this landmass in which we live today. We're not talking about what was set up by the colonizer. We're not talking about what was given to us. We don't want crumbs on the table, but what we are, who we are, is what our forefathers were in ancient times without doubt and contradiction. Our history was disrupted for a short period of time. For a short period of time, though many may say, "Oh, it was 400 years, 500 years, 600 years, etc." In on these shores, it was a very short period of time. But also, when you look at the word prophet comes from the word nabu, which means to be exalted. Now, we don't we don't worship Prophet Noble Ali. We don't praise Prophet Noble Ali. We give the prophet honor. That's different. We give Allah all the praise. And this is by way of the prophet's teachings. The prophet teaches us to worship Allah. He says that Allah is the one who is most wise, supreme, and beneficent. And Allah, and all praises are due to Allah. All praise, thanksgiving, and adoration are due to Allah. It's not due to man. But the prophet Noble Ali isn't just an ordinary man. He's a prophet, and he was sent to redeem us from our way of mind and our way of thinking. And I also want to say this point before I get into more points. The prophet Noble Ali was not a mason. The prophet Noble Ali was not a shriner. And just based off of my understanding and what I've investigated, the prophet Noble Ali never intended us to go into any of those orders. As a matter of fact, he was pulling many of our people out of those orders because they had a misconception of what the truth was. They had a misconception ultimately of the fact that, many of those orders, they derive from a specific geographical location, which you'll find in Europe. And though the European may have taken bits and pieces from our history, a lot of that was corrupted and changed and altered the ultimate purpose and premise of it. But the prophet Noble Ali was never in those orders. Now, the next part I want to get into, I want to draw from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I'm going to show you two sides. And I'm going to just say two sides for the sake of this segment. The first side, let me zoom out. And this is a copy of my Quran. One of my first ones I received. And it didn't look like this initially, but the first one is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's the volume prepared by the noble prophet Jura Ali, by the guidance of his father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father God Allah. That's the first side. So the prophet, he teaches us in multiple different lessons. And another word for lessons is degrees. So the prophet is teaching us, number one, redemption. Redemption from what? Our sinful and fallen stage of humanity. By doing what? Honoring the creeds and principles that have never served us any good. It never served us any good. It never been a benefit to us. As a matter of fact, they've been a detriment. And if you don't believe me, just look around society today. I often tell my wife, I believe our generation was the last generation where you actually had elders out front, out in the open, in our communities who were allowed, and I don't like saying the word allowed, but allowed to instruct us, to tell us what was right and wrong, to tell us or to show us how to conduct yourselves. I'm talking about our parents, our grandparents. I'm talking about our great grandparents, those of us who were blessed to be in that number to have great grandparents, and even those elders who were in our community, so to speak. Excuse me. They were able to instruct us, and we had communities. So, but the prophet is saying, look, you're in a fallen stage right now. You're in a fallen stage of humanity. And the highest plane of life that I'm here to redeem you to or get you back to with your Father God Allah is spirit life. It's spirit life. It's the spiritual uh, abundance or the spiritual lessons that will teach you and guide you and direct you to receive everything that you need here on earth. And the prophet teaches us that heaven and hell, are not a place of meets and bounds, but he said it's a state of mind. And he also teaches us that you can create or manifest heaven right here on earth, but it all starts with your way of thinking. It all starts with your thought processes. And it also starts with the work that you're willing to do on yourself. Because ultimately, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the lesson is that we learn from Prophet Noble Drali, the prophet, the prophet, because it's backwards, is that you learn to study yourself, that you work on yourself, that you're not, you may see others doing wrong, you may see them going astray, you may even see, you may say and hear things that you don't like, but ultimately you have to work on yourself. And when you study yourself and when you work on yourself, there's still more work to do in studying yourself as long as you're in this physical form, So that's one portion. Now, the other part that is so both parts actually are very near and dear to me. But again, eternalization is what makes you appreciate the lessons even more. You go to the other side, as I'm going to say, for the sake of my audience, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Know yourself and your Father God Allah, because when you know yourself and when you know Allah, you'll realize that you and Allah are one. And by what? About yourself, I'm not talking about your physical form, because we're taught that man, when I say man, I'm not talking about gender man, I'm talking about man, woman, and child. The original triunity, so to speak. Man, woman, and child. Man is not the body, nor is the soul, but we are a spirit and we are part of Allah. And the potencies in Allah. Allah has 99 attributes. And those attributes Allah put within the spirit, within his breath. He breathed life into man, and man became a living soul. But what's the importance of this? That we may learn to love instead of hate. The prophet came to teach us to learn to love instead of hate. Love for self first. Love yourself. Because often, as you've seen with the advertisement I showed earlier in the segment, how on earth can you love yourself when you're dehumanized? When you've been taken away, you've been stripped away. Not even just your identity been stripped away, but you've been stripped away to your very core. So he comes. We talking about at the age of 27. I mean, I don't know many of us what we're doing at the age of 27, but the prophet comes to erect and to build up a movement, and not for his selfish self, but for the love of his people, for the love of humanity, for the sake of humanity, to get us back not only in the constitutional fold, but get us back into the families of nations. But there's only one way you can do that, and that's to worship under your own vine and fig tree. That's what the Holy Bible says. The Holy Bible makes many different references to worshiping under your own vine and fig tree. The prophets of old, all the prophets, well, not all the prophets, but the prophets of old, the prophets specifically, the ones you find in that Holy Bible, and what is designated as the prophets, makes reference. Even Prophet Jesus of Nazareth makes reference to vine and fig tree, which means divine and national principles, the principles and the quality and the characteristics that make a individual, a family, and a nation. And the prophet lets us know this is the uniting of Asia, because our foreparents, our mothers and fathers, they went into Asia. So therefore, if they went into Asia, that means that our race is Asiatic. It's not black, because black is not beautiful when it's on a person. It's not beautiful when it's attached to a group of people. It's not beautiful. And it's nothing more than a color. It's nothing more than a color. And I'm going to show you another advertisement that's going to make it clear that, hey, you're calling your brother or sister may be identified. They may be labeled. You might even want to call yourself black, but you find yourself in uh, this pseudo system where it's saying, hey, we look at you, we make a determination based off of what we see, but you can't make a determination off of what you see. You have to get up on a person and you have to ask them, who are you? Where do you come from? Who are your family? Who's your parents? Who's your grandparents? It's the importance of, number one, having conversations with our elders, listening very carefully, listening to your elders, because they're going to let you know all you need to know about your family's history. But also, there's going to be a cutoff point, trust me, because you're going to hear Negro, Black, and colored. So then you're going to have to go a little deeper, investigate a little further, And even though this is going to be on YouTube, get off of YouTube and actually go into a actual temple if you have one in your city, in your state, in your vicinity. If you don't have one, then you're going to have to endeavor to reach out to brothers and sisters, regardless of what administration they're in, who are reputable, to get them to teach you. And then from that point, just me, take some time, put aside your understanding, and sit at their feet humbly. We're talking symbolically to learn from them, because when you learn, there's so much that's going to be opened up to you in regards about the truth about who you are. And I'm saying this, and I'm telling you, a decade ago, I wasn't the, and I'm still not the most polished speaker, but I wasn't speaking like this a decade ago. I wasn't propagating this faith almost a decade ago. A decade ago, if it wasn't for the prophet Noble Drew Ali, the teachings that he received, the teachings that he received, the mindset that he received from Almighty God Allah to get us out of this condition, I don't know where I would be right now. But the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said this is uniting of Asia. So he's uniting us with our brothers and sisters all across the world. All across the world. Here we go. So you open up the Holy Quran, right? You open up the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and there are specific chapters in it that we find that are not only geared towards our education, but they're also geared towards our upliftment. And give me 1 second, brothers and sisters, because what I'm doing right now, I'm just pulling up one chapter that I want us to focus on. So please bear with me. Please bear with me. All right. I thought I had it up, but now I'm pulling it up right now. So again, please just bear with me, and thank you for tuning into this channel. Thank you for tuning into this segment. This segment, um, I made up in my mind yesterday. I said I have to do this segment because we had our celebration in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it was truly a blessing. It was definitely a blessing, and I want to give honors to Temple Number 39 in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I also want to give honors to Sheikh Clarence Prather, as well as our national officials for the great work that they not only have done but continue to do for the benefit, and never putting themselves out on Front Street, but we're always uplifting and putting Allah first and Prophet um, out. So this chapter right here is chapter 48. Some say it's the last, some say it's the first chapter in the Quran, and it says the divine instructions, chapter 48, the end of time and the fulfilling of the prophecies. So what does that mean? Does that mean that 4:30 is going to be declared out, 5:30 is going to be declared out, 12 p.m.? No, that means the end of time. The end of time, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, a decade ago, there was a time point or point, a time stamp, sorry, that I had to declare that I wanted to change, that I needed a renewal of my mind, that my actions and behaviors, I outgrown them. Somewhere I read, and I'm paraphrasing, that when I thought as a child, when I conducted myself as a child, and when I partook, or excuse me, when I decided to indulge in childish behavior, those things were permissible. But when I made my mind up and I came to a point And the prophet makes us know about the point that you live from that point. You don't keep restarting the point. That I had to put away those childish things. And now I had to step into my purpose as a man. I had to step into my purpose as a husband. I had to step into my purpose as a father. And now, all praise due to Allah. I'm stepping into my purpose as a future, a future one that you can draw inspiration from, hopefully. That's my goal. It's never to put myself out in front, but it's always to put Allah out and put the prophets' teachings out, and and hopefully our brothers and sisters can find not only inspiration but find a some not some benefit, but the benefit of changing and directing your path. So it says the last prophet in these days is Noble Drew Ali, who was prepared divinely in due time by Allah to redeem men from their sinful ways and to warn them of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. The prophet warned us. There are different examples within our literatures in which the prophet says that, if this government that we live in here in the United States, if this society that we live in, if our people, if they don't get themselves together, the worst is yet to come. And you will see, if you haven't saw already, you can just turn on the news at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 12 noon, and even at 11 o'clock at night in your respective cities throughout the United States, and you're seeing the worst is here. And we know that a lot of, most, if not a lot of what we see, a lot of that stuff that you find on the news, that's intentional. But nevertheless, you can just look within your community, you see the worst is yet to come. But the prophet says, John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus of Nazareth, talking about Jesus of Nazareth, in those days to warn and stir up the people and prepare them to receive the divine creed which was to be taught by Jesus. And these modern days, there came a forerunner, who was divinely prepared by the great God Allah. His name is Marcus Garvey, who did teach and warn the nations of the earth to prepare to meet the coming prophet, who was to bring the true and divine creed of Islam. And his name is Noble Drew Ali. And I was taught, when you see a colon or you see a semicolon, it's something that's very important after. And I was taught that by Grand Sheikh Ronald Thornhill. It says, who was prepared and sent to this earth by Allah to teach the old time religion and the everlasting gospel to the sons of men, that every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree and return to their own and be one with their Father God Allah. So that's very important, because if you know anything about the forerunner, Brother Marcus Mosiah Aurelius Garvey, the UNIA, his membership swelled to about 2 million members. About 2 million members. And he had very active chapters of the UNIA here in North America and throughout the world, and Harlem, New York, and also here in Baltimore, Maryland, and other major cities as well. But he forewarned. He said, "Look, it's a coming prophet that's coming. It's a prophet who's going to come among us, come among your people, and he's going to teach you. And when he teaches you, take heed." And we know there are many others who came after Prophet Noble Drew Ali, but what separates the Prophet Noble Drew Ali from those who came after him, who attempted to either replicate or even distort to some degree what it is that he brought, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali came teaching us the pure, unadulterated, uncut truth. He did not attach or affix black to anything that he gave us. In fact, the Prophet taught us that black, according to science, means death. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali also taught us, that we have to honor our foremothers and forefathers. We have to go back in the mindset, because society will teach you or attempts to condition you to think that your ancestors were nothing but slaves. When all actuality, that's not the truth. It's far from the truth. They were actually the founders of the first religious creed for the salvation of mankind on earth, not humanity, but mankind. And we have duplicated and replicated different societies, nations, kingdoms, governments, both here, domestically, and in other places, several times over different centuries. It goes on to say the Moorish Science Temple of America is a lawfully chartered and incorporated organization. Any subordinate temple that desires to receive a charter, the prophet has them to issue to every state throughout the United States, etc. So when we're dealing with it, for those who may see this, this is why it's important not only to come to the Moorish Science Temple of America, take out membership, etc., but to join, to become an active member, to become a consistent and faithful member, to become an individual who is willing to dedicate their time and sort of equity, to the Moorish Science Temple of America, because there are a lot of rogue organizations, a lot of offshoots, a lot of individuals who are using the prophet's work, some slopping up the prophet's work, but you're going to know the tree by the fruit it bears. You're not going to go to a peach tree and look for pears because you're not going to find them. You're not going to go to an apple tree and you're not going to find plums on the apple tree, so to speak. So we're teaching, and we teach. We don't just teach and go over lessons, but we internalize them and we incorporate them within our families, societies, and communities. The prophet says that the world may hear. So the world needs to hear this. Asiatic, European, the whole world. And one thing that I'm going to make clear, we're not a hate group. We're not a I'm gonna shift the blame on the European. The European did this. The European did that. We know the history. We know the history of what has transpired. But we also know that we have to take accountability for what we did as well. And this is why that you may hear and know the truth. And among the descendants of Africa, there's still much wisdom to be learned in these days for the redemption of the sons of men under luxury, peace, freedom, and justice. The wisdom that you'll learn, both spiritual wisdom, practical wisdom, and the wisdom of just knowing history in its true sense, it can save your life and it can change your life. It can change your way of thinking. But if you're constantly on a low vibratory frequency, if you're constantly looking at movies to educate you, if you're constantly looking at biased articles and things of that nature, or things that were constructed to push eugenics, as me and the Sheikh Malaz may often talk about, or push a specific agenda to distort or to contort or constrict your mind, you're going to be caught in that. You're going to be stuck in that low vibratory frequency. The prophet is here to elevate us. He's here to elevate brothers and sisters and children. He's here to elevate families. He's here to elevate us and to clean us up. The prophet says, we as a clean and pure nation, descended from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. That's important. Again, there's no hatred. It's just we've seen, history has shown us what amalgamation, and we're not just talking about, and I'm being, not being crude or rude, brothers and sisters, not just physical or sexual amalgamation, but mindset, taking on the mindset of an individual who all they're out for is earthly salvation. All they're out for is earthly gain. How many resources they can take, how many people they can galvanize, how many nations they can exploit, how many borders they can create and divide and conquer our brothers and sisters across the globe. We're not out for that mindset. But instead, what we're out for is to go back in the mind of our forefathers, to examine and investigate who our forefathers were, who they are, and who we are. That's the importance of what the Moorish Science Temple of America is. This is the importance of the teachings of the Prophet Noble Dryly. It's to clean us up. It's to change our way of thinking. It's to get us out of, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that, or excuse my language, niggas this and that. No, we're not doing that. That mindset is declared out. It was declared out. It was declared out when the prophet came on the scene. It was declared out when the prophet was born. It was declared out. In verse 7, it says, therefore we are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation. So to return to church and Christianity means that we got to return their institutions as well. We have to return their institutions, even those institutions that say, "Hey, we're not, and we don't prescribe or subscribe to any religious persuasion," and yet those institutions were founded and predicated on Christian beliefs and ideas. And again, I love my brothers and sisters who are Christians. I do. Most of my family members are from the Christian persuasion. My grandmother, one of the individuals who I love and adore, and may the great God Allah be pleased with her life and her works and what she embodied in her relationship with God, with her love for Jesus, who we honor and respect as Muslims. We can't negate that. However, the origin and its roots, we have to give it back to the European nations because it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation. It's their institution, and there's nothing wrong with that being their institution. Again, this is no hate. It's just we know and understand where we're going as Muslims. It says, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which simply means peace, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. All right. So I'm going to go to the next portion because it's the Qurans that we have. Excuse me, the larger ones. It has. I have to go to the next section. And again, thank you for tuning in. All right. Let me zoom in. So the prophet continues with 3 last verses. He says, excuse me, let me go back out a little bit. All right. He says, the covenant of the great God Allah, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth land, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. And you find that in the Ten Commandments. You find that during the time of Prophet Moses. You find that in the time of prophets predating Prophet Moses. But you find this point that we have to honor thy father and thy mother. We talk about our ancient fathers and mothers. We talk about our modern fathers and mothers. We talk about those who we found on those advertisements. We have to honor them. Honor them by what? By getting into the understanding that, number one, we have to be the message that we bring. We have to live in the truth, not living in my truth. I hear people often say, "Oh, I'm living in my truth. I'm in the truth." No, it's only one truth. It's only one truth. And if you look at the truth and you examine it, it's just like, and it's a good example, the clean glass and the dirty glass. The clean glass, you can see straight through it. It's no muck, it's no mire, it's no dirt, it's no particles, it's none of that. It didn't even have to go through a filtration system. It's just you drink it, it's pure truth. Pure truth. And then you have the dirty glass from the other end. It has some truth in there, but it has particles in there. It has a little bit of debris in there. You don't want to drink that. It may even have a little I can't even think of what they found in our pipes here in Baltimore, but it has that in there. Legionella, or not Legionella, I might be pronouncing it wrong. It has a little bit of that in it. It's going to get you sick. And that's the same thing with what the prophet is letting us know. You know, by honoring your fathers and your mothers, your days may be long upon the earth land. By honoring your fathers and your mothers, your days may be long upon this earth land. You'll find yourself, you'll find your children will find themselves. Your descendants will find themselves in a better space, in a better condition, in a better place. You know, ultimately our goal is to put our children in a better condition than what we were in. I think that's every parent's goal. But it isn't just the materialism. It isn't just, how much money or how much wealth or how much, but you got to give them a spiritual foundation. And it can't just be, I'm looking up in the sky and I'm waiting. It can't just be, I'm looking towards an individual who doesn't resemble me at all. And I'm not talking about the prophet. I'm talking about, what was forced in the minds of our ancestors. And even to this day, you still see them being forced. Individuals who they put representation up, and the representation don't look nothing like you. Nothing like you. And yet, day after day, you go in worshiping, we gotta stop that. This is 2025. We're in the 21st century. We're in a new era of time. And it has to change. That time is being declared out. So the prophet says And this is the truth right here. He said, "Come all ye Asiatic of America." He didn't say, "Come all you blacks of America." He didn't say, "Come all you African Americans." He didn't even say, "Come all you FBAs." He didn't say, "Come all you colors." He said, "Come all you Asiatic." So he's taking you back in the mind of America and hear the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you're not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, then you will learn to love instead of hate. The prophet came teaching nationality, he came teaching birthrights, he came teaching national and divine principles. The prophet Noble Drew Ali, when he makes reference to birthrights, he's not only just referencing physical birthrights, but he's also making reference to the spiritual realm, the spiritual lesson of birthrights, the birthright of being able to pray to your God, the God of your understanding, the great God, Allah, that you don't have to go to a middleman or a priest to intercede, but all you have to do is put your hand, which is likened into the mind, into Allah's hand, which is the thought of Allah, which cannot be circumscribed and which cannot be understood with finite thinking. The prophet says we are trying to uplift all humanity. So he's talking to you, brother and sister. Those of you who are looking at this segment, we're trying to uplift it, and we need you. We need you. The same way Uncle Sam tells, them youngsters coming out of high school, etc. We need you to join the army. We need you to join the Moorish Temple of America. Come and link yourselves with the families and nations. We honor all true and divine prophets. So we don't, we honor all true and divine prophets: Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, prophets we find in our Holy Bible, the prophets that aren't in our Holy Bible that we find in the Holy Quran of Mecca, and all true and divine prophets. And you know a prophet by their works, their words, and their deeds. That's what you know a prophet by. You don't know a prophet by an individual saying, "Oh, I'm a prophet," and they coming in and they trying to put, themselves above or beyond. No, you know a prophet by their works, their words, and their deeds, and you watch it come to pass. All right. So let's go. So the next point I wanted to raise, because I made reference to some literature, and again, giving honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali on January 8th, giving honors to Prophet. Some say the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is dead, but the Prophet is very alive and well. And how do we know the Prophet is alive and well? Well, we just seen the Holy Quran, the Moorish Temple of America. Those words are the words of the Prophet. In some way I read, the Prophet says that all of his words are spirit and life. So we give voice to the words of the prophet. The prophet actually gives voice to us because by the prophet putting his words, putting his spirit, and I'm not talking nothing spooky, because when I'm talking about spirit, I'm talking about truth. Putting that truth within us, he gives us the ability to stand up upright, fearless, and independent, and to teach, or as we say in the Moorish Temple of America, to demonstrate with power and authority and clearness. So one of our records, another record that is valued, is priceless to us, is our Quran questions for Moorish children, Quran questions for Moorish Americans, excuse me, and then inside Quran questions for Moorish children. Because when you come into the Moorish Science Temple of America, we're coming in as children in the mindset. We are deprogramming ourselves from what we were taught, and to some degree, not everything, but to some degree, what we were miseducated about concerning the truth about not only who we are, but the world that we live in. And you see Prophet Noble Drew Ali, this image, again, signs and symbols of for men and women of understanding. The Prophet lets us know that the Star and Crescent is a symbol of Islam. And he also lets us know the great meeting is on. It's very important that we know and understand what that statement means, because it's so profound, and we don't want to get a misunderstanding as to what the prophet is saying. And then he lets us know that hand press of unity is not something from some order. It's not, and I'm not speaking radical. It isn't coming from those guys from that other segment. But he's like, that's the uniting of Asia. That's when I put my hand out to my brother or my sister and I offer my assistance. This is how we get uplifted. We get uplifted through unity, through a unified thought. But also, we're putting our hands in Allah's unchanging hand. So it's so many different. It's so it's so beautiful. I can't even put it in words. You see the prophet Noble Dry Ali, but before you see the prophet, you see another star of the crescent. They have rays of light, and then you see confusion. You see darkness behind the prophet. But the prophet isn't worried because he's not coming out of the cares of the world, but he's picking the sister, the sister. You seen it earlier with the advertisements. Our sisters were degraded, and many times our sisters are still degraded. We got to have a better and a deeper appreciation for womanhood. I give honor to my wife. I give honor to my daughter. I give honor to my mother. I give honor to all the women who not only I've manifested through physically, but I give honor to the sisters in the temples, my mothers, spiritual mothers. I give them honor because how can a nation grow without our sisters being wrapped in their right frame of mind? How can a brother grow if he's weak? You can't grow that way, and you can't raise a family that way. You're gonna have confusion. But the prophet, you see humanity, and humanity is nearly lifeless, coming out of the cares of the world. I came out of the cares of the world. If I showed you images of what I appeared when I was 24, you know what I'm saying, 23, 24 years old, coming out of the cares of the world, my countenance changed. I'm a totally different man than what I was then. I was a child then. I was a child then. But then the prophet, he has one foot on dry land, and he's placing humanity on salvation because salvation is the rock on which we build our understanding. It's the rock. Salvation is also Islam. For the Moorish American, it's it's harmony, it's peace, it's peace of mind, it's peace with yourself, it's peace with Allah's creations. And you find that peace by learning the truth about yourself. So Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and in this pamphlet, you'll find 101 questions that we go over um, every Sunday. And I'm one of the Sunday school instructors. There are many throughout this land. I give honors to all the Sunday school instructors, all the Quran questions, Sunday school instructors, more Sunday school instructors. I give honors to you, even if you call your segment, I think some more call it Quran class or whatever you may call it, questionnaire class. I give honors to you. And the reason I give honors to you is because we're all uh, propagating the faith of of Allah in America. We're propagating the faith of Ali in America. We're teaching our people simultaneously on those days. We're teaching our people simultaneously on Fridays and every other respective day because every day is a holy day. Every day is a moment to teach. And sometimes the best time to teach is just to sit back and observe. It isn't always what I got to say out my mouth, but sometimes it's sitting back and observing and listening, just listening. So I give honors to everyone. All right. And you also have, and this is a great record as well, and we're nearing it. Give me 1 second. Because we're coming to the prophet now. So going back, taking another historical approach, right? Because you may think to yourself, well, wait a minute, brother Jordan L. You talking about reconstruction earlier. And I'm free. I'm able to live where I want. I'm able to go where I want to go. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I'm able to acquire as much as I want to acquire. What's the importance of nationality? What's the importance of I don't even, some people may say, well, I don't even care to ascribe to a specific religion. And I get it. I get it because there's a lot going on in society that can twist you, it can change you, it can mold your mind, it can even repel you from wanting to deal with people because you may come in to a place with an honest and intentional purpose to learn the truth about yourself because you want to change. And then eventually, unfortunately, like I know, you got grifters, as I say, shifters, and you got individuals who will steer you wrong. But one thing I want to let people know, there is an importance and there is a significance of what it is that I'm sharing with you today. And the importance is the litmus test, as I often talk about, being able to do that litmus test, being able to distinguish truth from falsehood, being able to look at the clean glass and the dirty glass, so to speak. But I want to go take us back because I learned from my teachers, you got to study your history. You have to know and understand the context in which the people are coming from. It's more than just that advertisement. So let's look at Reconstruction real quick. So in this segment right here, again, symbolism. It says slavery is dead. Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863. That's by President Abraham Lincoln. It says slavery is abolished by the United States and Congress. Then you see justice on one side, and then you see blind justice on the other side. And then you see a man who appears to look like Jefferson Davis beating an Asiatic. It says the land of the free. It says Negro sold as punishment for crime. That sounds about right. That's the 13th Amendment with two sections, which says that slavery is forever abolished in this country unless found guilty of a crime. So that means slavery is still alive and well and kicking. As long as I don't know about anybody else, but the prison industrial complex is still alive and kicking. Many of our brothers and sisters, regardless of what their race and or nationality is, and I'm talking about Asiatic, European, etc., they find themselves in these institutions. Some, unfortunately, for things they didn't do, and others for things they did do. But it says state rights, 1866, home of the brave. Excuse me. So let's look at this. This is from Harper's Weekly, and this is January 12th, 1867. It says, the freedmen are still pursued and sacrificed by the ancient laws of slavery. So wait a minute. Slavery ended in 1865. However, the freedmen are still being pursued and sacrificed 1 year later. It actually during the time of Reconstruction. Something ain't right about that. It says, and thus the rage of baffled rebellion expends itself upon the helpless and unfortunate of the population. Talking about the Asiatics at that time. Yet all these tragedies should be constantly remind us that the late dominant class in the southern states are poisoned to the very marrow by the system of slavery. But this wasn't just a North and South issue because you had just as many riots in the North. Let's continue. And what I mean by that is you had not just as many, let me take that back. You had rebellions, upheavals, riots, discriminatory acts, segregations, and countless, I'm going to say unaliving, as we say on YouTube, that was happening at that time. And it says, and that no duty of this nation is now so solemn and paramount to take care that the late slaves should not be tortured. So they couldn't even, there was no legislation that could stop this. You understand? Legislation couldn't stop our foremothers and forefathers from being persecuted, from losing their physical forms, from being incarcerated. Couldn't stop it. Money couldn't stop it. You couldn't buy your way out of this. You still can't buy your way out of this. Though some may think they can. Just look at many of our entertainers, look at many of our celebrities. And I'm not going to say our because they're not my celebrities. I don't worship celebrities or nothing like that. But look at the ones they prop up as our leaders. They still can't buy their ways out of it. 2024 proved that to us. Don't matter how much money you have in the world, you can't buy your way out of it. It says, no plea of state or local law, no fear of national intervention or centralization consolidation should prevent the people of the United States from protecting those who are hated and persecuted because of their fidelity to the government. So fidelity equates to faithfulness. Our ancestors were faithful to this government because, let the truth be told, we had not only a part to play in this government, but we actually had a intricate role in the formation of the Constitution and the formation of the style of government in which we find today. We're talking about 35 Moors and 20 Anglo-Saxons. This is the truth. You can investigate it. Every year, and giving honors to Grand Sheikh Azim Hopkins Bey, every year he and his family, they put on not only a demonstration, but uh, an educational uh, program, so to speak, to educate the masses, not just Moorish Americans, but everybody. They educate us and they teach us, hey, this is what happened here in Philadelphia. And these are the subsequent dealings or issues that took place in which our ancestors were stripped of their nationality and their race. It says, if for a single year, the white people, and when I say white, I'm talking about Europeans, of the late rebel states should be made to suffer what the colored, and we say Asiatic people, they have endured for generations, the world will cry out with shame and horror. The president of the state of Georgia, of the Georgia Senate, in some recent, insolent remarks upon the question of reorganization, heartily said that even the worm may turn. Let him pardon his words. Let him and all who speak, especially all for whom he speaks, understand clearly that such words in the mouth of those who, after the most unspeakable crime, are offered the most unprecedented clemency, are amusing. So the unspeakable crime was the institution of slavery, but also just some of the horrible and egregious things that they were perpetuating. My wife and I, we watched a movie the other day with Will Smith in it. It was called Emancipation, and it was jarring. It was jarring because you hear things, but you really see in real time how the dehumanization and the stripping of a people, and specifically the brothers at that time, and the sisters and their children, was very, very it's jarring. It says, but in the mouths of those who are guilty of the most intolerable meanness and tyranny toward others, such words are indescribably contemptible. And I'm going to stop right there. So, again, going back to the image, they said slavery was dead. They said it was dead because of the Civil Rights Bill, the Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863. But then you find that it's alive and well because of Reconstruction. Reconstruction was the reconstructing not only of the government, but reconstructing of the destiny of the Asiatic people, the Moors, or the Moorish Americans of here in the United States of America. All right, continuing and furthering. So we went through that portion. So giving on to the prophet once again, because in the prophet's literatures, you're going to find the humanity pamphlet. And in the humanity pamphlet, not going to go inside, but the Prophet Noble Drew Ali lets us know exactly what it takes to be a leader here in this Moorish society, here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, here in the Moorish movement. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali lets us know that we have to renew our acts and amend our ways, that we have to go constantly and study ourselves, and not only just study ourselves, but make sure that we're living a clean life, both in the public and private. So anything that I may think or do, because remember, it starts first with the thought before you get into the act. If it's egregious, you need to pump your brakes. You need to stop. You need to think about first think about yourself. You need to think about your family. You need to think about your community. You need to think about those individuals who you impact because they're watching you. And it's not because you're trying to get brownie points or anything like that, but because you're a leader, because it's been bestowed and entrusted upon you to do what's right in the sight of Allah, as I often say. To do what's right in the sight of Allah. Do nothing shameful. I'm going to take a brief reading. So the prophet, right, in the humanity pamphlet, it says, the prophet is spoken. So this was Friday, November 9th, 1928. Prophet says, all governors and grand sheiks and heads that got any body of Moors of any temple of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So that means if you calling yourself, or not even calling yourself, but if you are a governor, a grand sheik, a head official, meaning a sheikh, a sheikhs, a teacher, so on and so forth. Listen up. The prophet says he or she must be of moral standard and have a heart of love, and their works must be of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So, every January 8th, we don't got to get on in the front of the public and bicker and debate. You don't have to do that. We ain't got to be, when you do, when you air your dirty laundry out in public, you know what I'm saying? It really, what it does is it paints or it gives the notion that not only the person that you're debating with is confused, but you yourself are confused as well. Because if I'm just a regular Asiatic and I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, brother so and so, sister so and so invited me to the temple or invited me to a Moorish outing or a Moorish American event hosted by the Moorish Science Temple of America. But I see them fighting, bickering, arguing, debating about Moorish holidays, customs, which don't alter the nature of truth, and other things of that nature. I'm turned off by it. I'm turned off. If I'm just a person who's a seeker after truth, a humble individual, just a person who's seeking after the truth, I'm turned off by it because I'm seeing it as confusion on board, and I'm trying to find a better way. But anyway, the prophet says they are to imitate the prophet in speech and teaching in any said temple. They must not be under the influence of intoxicating liquor, so we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't put anything harmful in our body, we don't eat pork. Of course, you know that. Um, some of us, like myself, meat, things of that nature. But if you do, praise the Lord. I'm not turning my nose up, but that's your thing. All right. They must not be under the influence of any intoxicating liquors or any other harmful motive that will terminate to become a detriment to the organization, because the organization should be at the forefront behind Allah and the Prophet. The organization should be at the forefront of your mind. I don't want to do anything that's going to cause the organization shame or harm. That's real. It must not be known that any leader is staying away from home when neglecting his duty at home, or must allow the public to know their wrongdoing. So we can't be doing that, and you know what that means. So one wife, one family. As I mentioned before in the segment, the Spirit of Islam, the previous segment me and the Sheikh of Lions Bay did. Prophet didn't come teaching 3 or 4 wives, 3 or 4 husbands. Prophet says, take unto thyself a wife. That means one. Take unto thyself a husband. That means one. One is a unit. More than one is confusion. They must forever live the life of love at home, and it must be known by all the members. They must not speak rash words or use any profane language in the mildest form before any individuals, because a Moorish leader without influence of good works cannot be a leader. And to be a real Moorish leader, you must study the Quran and the divine constitution. That is handed down, divine constitution that is handed down unto you by me, the prophet. No finance businesses are to be opened without any group of members or any temple, with any group of members or any temple by the governor or the grand sheiks or whosoever in charge without consultation of me, the prophet. So you might be asking yourself, how do you consult with the prophet now in 2024? The prophet's been, how do you consult with the prophet? Well, you consult with the prophet through Act 1, the divine constitutional bylaws. This is why it's important to not only study, but to learn the teachings of the prophet and the functions of the organization, so you can't be led astray. It says, all uplifting books are to be issued only through me, the prophet, because that money is to finance the Moorish movement. The heads of any temple can maintain an emergency fund, which cannot exceed of the amount of 25 to 50 cents a week per member. So this was during the time of the prophet. All right. Of course, we live in a time now where it's different. So the finance is a little bit more. It's increased. It says, all public collection and dues also to the supporting of each said temple and its domestic works. No finance book is to be in any temple except by the prophet. Excuse me. The head of every temple must by law obey the word of the prophet. And if any leader or any head of any temple fails to obey these laws, embezzlement is discharged. It is subject to the enforcement of the law by the grand body, and the penalty may be a fine or removal from office or placed under heavy restriction of the law. Supreme words of the prophet, Noble Drawley. So those are supreme words. Those aren't just words. That's a structure. That's an organizational structure that was put in place by the prophet that still exists to this day. And the thing is, when laws are created and enforced, it keeps everybody within the bands of society in check. There's no infringement. There's no overstepping. There's no slighting. There's no elimination of what was established initially by the founder, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. All right, so the last section I want to read, and it's going to come from a book, from the great book of the Resurrection, which is to assist. It never was meant to take away. It was never meant to assert the teachings of the prophet, but it sole goal and purpose is to get us to understand the organization a little bit better. Because during the time of the creation of the pamphlet, which is the great book of the resurrection, and even to this day, there's a misunderstanding about what this organization is truly about. And even more so now, there's a misunderstanding of what this record is about, as well as what this pamphlet is about. This pamphlet is about. And of course, the Holy Pamphlet, the Holy Record, the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, there's still a misunderstanding of what these records are about, these holy and divine pamphlets. So the portion I want to read from is actually coming from a section in the great book of the resurrection called First Come, First Honor. And I'm going to start on the second page because some may still be saying, well, okay, we know the prophet came on the scene and, we know what was happening, but what is the significance of 1913 AD? What is the significance of 1886? What is the significance of these days and times? What is the significance of August 1st, 1928? Why is this time? What's important? Okay, why is it important? Why should I not only know this, but what was being demonstrated? Is being what is being shown? What is being made known to me? All right. So it says this, and again, this is coming from first. It's gonna be first come, first honor, because the first to come to the people, to the Moors, the Moorish Americans here in North America was Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I don't think that there was another Asiatic, and by Asiatic I'm talking about one who comes from those descending and still to this day who are under the labels or the marks of Negro, Black, and Colored, teaching our people their religion and their divine creed. It says, in 1913, Prophet Noble Drew Ali founded on this true and sure foundation the Moorish Holy Temple of Science in Newark, New Jersey, fulfilling the prophecy. And just go to your Holy Bible when you get a chance. Psalms 118, verse 22. The stone which the builders refused has become the headstone of the corner. You also can refer to Prophet Isaiah 28:16 in the book Holy Bible. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, it should be a sure foundation. He that liveth shall not make haste. Then you go down to Peter 2:6 in the Bible. Wherefore also it is contained in the scripture, behold, I lay in Zion the chief cornerstone, elect, precious, that he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. Excuse me. And then you go back to Psalms 114:12. That our son may be as plants grown up in their youth, that our daughters may be as cornerstones polished after the solitude of a palace. So I'm gonna just not break it down, but the fulfilling of the prophecies. We talked about we went over the end of time of the fulfilling of the prophecies. The cornerstone that the builders refused, the prophet Obadiah Ali. He didn't come from the rich, he didn't come from the elect, he didn't come from the high knockers, he didn't come from the order boys, he didn't come from these individuals that for whatever reason had letters behind their names, or those individuals who just focus so much on title and wealth and prestige. And I'm not saying anything in regards to people with letters behind their names, because I have them. You know, I went to school, both undergrad and graduate, but I realized, and also that realizing through time, you know, that is a form of an education, but that's not the education. I had a good friend of mine when I went to Norfolk State University. One of my good friends, John Bingham, he said when we were in school, he said an education and the education are two different things. You know, he said that, we should focus on the education. And he said that when I was 18. I didn't realize at the time what he was saying, but as I got older, I'm 35 now, I realized the difference between an education and the education. It's two different things. This is where we find ourselves, people. It says, out of a people who were submerged in ignorance and who had been victims of slavery, you seen it through the program. A perfect seed, blew the seed and in the form of one divinely prepared and ordained by the great God Allah, and end of the prophet, fulfilling the prophecies of Prophet Daniel, which bore the name of his identity, Drew. Daniel 2:34. Thou saw it till that stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image about his feet, and that were iron and clay, and break them into pieces. It says, the mountain from whence the stone came is symbolic of a nation of people. These people being submerged in dark and mentally dead is symbolic of this nation having no hands to protect or to work for themselves. Out of this nation, Allah, the great God of the universe, drew a perfect seed and commissioned him to raise the living dead. Prophet Noble Ali was the first. He was the first to make the Moors conscious. That's true. Conscientious. It don't matter what, and I'm not speaking radical, what organizations or what groups sprang up after the prophet. Prior to that, our people weren't calling themselves Hebrews. Before the prophet, they weren't calling themselves Hebrews. They knew who they were, because you can see it all throughout history. We've always made instances of the Bible. Our ancestors sang them songs. They sang the songs about going over to Zion, about going down to the Jordan Ford, about Prophet Moses. And they actually took on those titles and degrees too. Shout out to Harriet Tubman. May Allah be pleased with her. And many other countless ones who did the work. But the Prophet Noble Ali was the first. And yet our people and those who come from other lands, they attempt to try to omit or erase the Prophet from history. And I can't let that happen. And I'm pretty sure all my brothers and sisters who are Moorish Americans, who are Muslims, they're not going to let it happen either. Even those who aren't Moorish Americans and give honors to the Prophet, they're not going to allow that to happen. Because we know and understand not only the significance, not only the importance, but the love he had for his people, the love he had for humanity as a whole. He never bashed the European. He never played the blame game. He never sent his people to do melee and then turn the blind. He never did those things. He was just, the prophet ultimately wanted us to just do what was right and to get what is ours, just like any other nation of people. Just like any other nation of people. But let's continue. It says, I'm going to reread it again. No, excuse me. It says, the nation of people of the Asiatic of America, for whom many years, and here it is, I just said it, singing those songs, We sang the song, "Where Shall I Be When That First Trumpet Sounds?" But because the prophet didn't come looking like what many of our grandparents and great grandparents were indoctrinated to believe, a pale skinned person with certain features, blue hair, blonde eyes, etc., not speaking radical, just telling the truth, they didn't accept him. But guess what? You can look throughout history, biblically, Quranic, etc. A prophet was never, or most times, in most cases, the prophets often faced persecution and detestment by their own people. It was always, they always faced some type of scrutiny. They always faced some hostility. They always faced some sort of challenge or absorption by their own people. So what made the prophet of Badrali any different than the prophets of old? Remember, the prophets are divine core. All true and divine prophets are known by their works, words, and their deeds, and what they had to go through and experience, just bringing the truth to their people. It says, Drali sounded the trumpet, and we have ears to hear and won't hear. He sounded it so loud it woke up the dead. Those who had the spirit of Allah in their hearts hear the trumpet sound. Those who were slaves ignored the call because they loved the principles of the Ten Commandments. And that's not speaking radical of the Ten Commandments, but I give you an example. One commandment says, "Thou shalt not kill," right? And yet, you have to look at the context of the word "kill." I went to the movies the other day with my son and my wife and my daughter because it was my son's Earth Day. And there was an advertisement that came on, and the advertisement said that gambling addiction was on the rise here in the state of Maryland. Now, me and my wife looked at each other and we shook our heads. And the reason why we shook our heads, I said, "No, look at that." She said, "I know, right?" They put the casino downtown. They put one out not too far from us in Arundel. They legalized betting and gambling. And then they turn around, they profit from it. They profit from it. And the gambling part wasn't the portion that caught me. It was the fact that it said because of gambling addiction, divorce is on the rise, substance abuse is on the rise, and individuals using drugs and things of that nature is on the rise. That's killing someone. That's really killing someone because you're destroying families, you're destroying livelihoods, you're taking people out of the mind, out of being clear level thinkers. And the thing is, the rich and the rulers, they knew these things prior to them introducing it to the masses of people. They legalized these things, and then as a result of them legalizing it, next thing you know, now you have all these individuals who are now having to go to those university medical centers, et cetera, that were promoting it. I mean, we're promoting this gambling addiction help thing, and they're receiving money and kickbacks from it. So everybody, one hand washes another hand. And the only people who don't benefit from it are the people who are suffering. That's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. But let's continue. We'll zoom in just a little bit. Zoom out just a little bit. All right. So that's what he means by they love the Ten Commandments. In the Holy Quran, it says that the rich and the rulers, they live by the Ten Commandments, while the poor and the suffer die. The poor and suffer, they value and they love the Ten Commandments for what it means, not only in essence, but what it means when you're demonstrating it in a form of true equality. Not equity, but true equality. In the true instance that, you know, you're following it to a T, but you're not just following the letter of the law, but you're following the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is what allows you to live. It's what saves you. But the letter can kill you. And if you can follow the letter and the spirit simultaneously, but you got to know when to do both. But if you're constantly on the letter of the law tip, you know, people are going to suffer. And that's what you see happening right now. And there's so many different instances I can give, but I don't want to belabor the point. It says, through the Ten Commandments, the rich and ruler live while the poor suffer and die. So he's referencing the Holy Quran, the 46th chapter, 6th and 7th verse. And I already read this portion right here in chapter 48. So you can see that even here in the resurrection book, there's a constant reference to what the prophet Noble Drali gave to you and I to remind us that the prophet's way is right and the other way is wrong. That you have the ability to answer, or excuse me, not answer, but you have the ability to discern and to make up your mind to listen to your higher self or lower self. But you can't, the blame game is off. Because once the blindness come off, you realize that the angel is not some being with wings and the devil's not some red man in a suit, and that you're accountable for your own actions. Then you begin to realize that, hey, I got some work I have to do on myself. This is what I learned coming into the temple. This is what um, I still not only keep in the heart of my mind, but this is what guides me throughout my days. And this is what will continue to guide me all the days of my life. Is that I realize that without Allah, without Allah, that I give praises to Allah. I thank Allah for being the sustainer, the nourisher, the exalted one. I thank Allah for being most gracious and beneficent. And I thank Allah for all his prophets, Prophet Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, Prophet Buddha, Prophet Confucius, etc. I thank Allah for the last prophet in these days and times. I thank Allah for the last prophet in these days and times. I thank Allah for the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, who was born in the state of North Carolina. My family, my grandparents, my great grandparents, from the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Virginia, etc. He came amongst his people to redeem us. So I give honor to the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And me personally, I can't let anybody omit him from history. I can't let anybody omit him or try to write him out. I can't allow anyone to attempt to galvanize his teachings and mislead people. That's not right. That's not fair. That's mean and unjust. So give honor to the prophet, because January 8th is a celebrated day. It's a day of great honor. It's a day of great reverence. It's a day of great respect. It's a day where we sound that trumpet. It's a day where we have celebrations. And guess what? We've been having celebrations from Saturday, and we're going to have them up till this week coming up, and we're going to celebrate all year. So don't think, that what we're doing right now, because this is not what they call idolatry or paganism or whatever. This is none of those things. This is giving honors where honors are due. This is giving honors to the man, the prophet, the one who came teaching us and guiding us back to salvation with Allah. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you all for tuning into the Moorish Sense Channel, tuning into this recording. We will be going live next week, myself and Sheikh Valans Bay. And again, if you have any questions about anything I say, again, this is based solely off of my understanding, my interpretation. It's not the end all be all. My uh, lessons, what I've been not only taught, but what I actually study and investigate throughout my day. You may hear differently on other channels, praise Allah. You may hear differently in other temples, praise Allah. There's no compulsion in Islam, and likewise with me, I don't debate, I communicate. I'm always willing to sit down and have a dialogue and discussion. But with that being said, if you have any questions or inquiries about this episode or any previous episode or segment, you can reach out to myself or Brother Balans Bay at moorsensemedia@gmail.com. And we will get back to you. I want to thank all of those who have been just leaving positive and uplifting comments. I want to thank those who have left not so positive and uplifting comments as well. You're in your own right to have your own constructive feedback and criticism. Just please make sure it's positive and uplifting. I often look at it. So with that being said, I'm going to end this segment with the Moorish American prayer. And again, forgot one more point. Give me 1 second. So if you're out in Baltimore, feel free to visit us, come in and stop in and visit, and stay for a while, learn. Our meetings are from 8 to 10 on Fridays, from 12 to 2 on Sundays. It's Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 13, located at 1055 North Milton Avenue. And then we also have Temple number 13-2 under the leadership of Grand Chief Eric Thompson Bay. Same time, 8 to 10 Fridays, 12 to 2 Sundays. If you're in Baltimore, if you're in the West Side, we have a Temple in West Baltimore. Likewise, if you're here in the East Side, we have one in East Baltimore. And eventually we'll have one in the South Side, as well as the north, up north, North Baltimore. But, excuse me, my allergies. Come on out, come visit your monks family, your monks brothers and sisters. Even if you're from a different state and you're coming to visit, stop in and visit us. We would love to have you in attendance. So with that being said, I'm going to leave off with the Moorish American prayer. I'm going to sign off with the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Peace, love, and light, brothers and sisters.